Thing one tonight, do you remember John Barron or John Miller, the Trump spokesman who would call up reporters and leak braggadocious information about the Donald in the 80s, but obviously were just Donald Trump himself pretending to be someone else?
He gets called by everybody. He gets called by everybody in the book in terms of women. Well, he gets called by a lot of people. I mean, they call. They just call. Actresses, people that you write about, just call to see if they can go out with them and things.
They just call. In 1984, Trump, pretending to be John Barron, called up a reporter for Forbes magazine who was working on the magazine's third annual ranking of America's richest people. John Barron just wanted to share some really favorable information about Donald Trump's financial situation.
Are you saying that perhaps for tax purposes the ownership has been transferred to Donald Trump?
Correct. That's correct.
Okay, and would you say, in excess of 90% of the ownership, I believe?
I'd say in excess of 90. In fact, well, it's really closer to even the ultimate, but it's in excess of 90%, yes.
Not only was that not John Barron, what he's saying was not true. It was Trump lying to Forbes, pretending to be someone else to get Donald Trump on the Forbes 400 list. Now, Trump really cares about that list, which is why tomorrow could be a tough day for him. And that's thing two in 60 seconds. Donald Trump clearly had ambitions to leave the White House more rich than when he got there. There's, of course, the Trump International Hotel in Washington. It opened his first year in office, where Trump can make money off of anyone who comes to town and wants to please him. The president has also reportedly charged the government millions of dollars to rent office space in Trump Tower for the purpose of protecting him, and more than $300,000 for golf cart rentals, which he charges the Secret Service when he goes to his clubs. But he's going to have to start renting shoes, too, because this plan is not working. Forbes is reporting that Donald Trump's net worth has actually dropped from $4.5 billion in 2015 to $3.1 billion the last 2 years. $200 million of that apparently because of the effect of Trump's presidency on his brand. For some reason, a lot of people are turned off by the Trump name now. I can't imagine why. Tomorrow, Forbes releases its latest Forbes 400 list, and we don't know exactly where Trump is on it, but we know last year he was number 248. Forbes says he's dropped 138 spots this year, which by our math has him barely hanging on at number 386. Not that Trump cares or anything.
I mean, Forbes just came out and they said I'm worth $4.5 or $5 billion, and they have no idea. Actually, they have no idea. It's much more than that, but I won't tell them.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.